Hello, Tansei. I'm Natalie Lauren from Georgian Bay Métis community. I have family roots there. I just graduated from NASCAD with a Bachelor of Design and a major in interdisciplinary design and then a minor in illustration. It was my final year in the design program at NASCAD, and I really saw it as an opportunity to do something I knew would be meaningful and to stop catering my projects to just get a good grade and do what I knew the instructors would be happy with. So I wanted to take a risk in this final class, and it ended up paying off. This was important to me because as an uninvited guest in Mi'kma'ki and spending the last 5 years here, I wanted to do something that showcased the friendships and the relationships that I've built while I'm here. This project is about Mi'kmaq language revitalization, and I'm not Mi'kmaq and Métis. So when I work with people from different communities, it's really important. I always think of that phrase, nothing about us without us. The project itself is all centered around that theme of counter memory activism, and it's working in an interdisciplinary way with a group of scholars, artists, museologists, curators, and we're all exploring those themes of collective memory, dealing with difficult heritage and histories, and creating projects all around that, and to create this conversation around it as well. The colonial history of this land has made it very difficult for many Indigenous groups to know their language, and I think it's about 75% of Indigenous languages in Canada are endangered, and that's just because of discriminatory policies like the Indian Act and criminalizing speaking a language, having powwows, practicing culture in an effort to assimilate Indigenous groups into Western society.
Migwidedakan. Danjuju ebire ji juenek. Migwidedam aldugui maptezigiskik ulani buktuk. Migwidedam ulani bukt. Dan idel gululike.
Emma is my really good friend. When I met her, she was actually one of the people that was just really confident in who she was, and she was really proud of where she came from, and it really inspired me to dive deeper into my culture and renaming my culture. I'm using my skills to emphasize her work and elevate it in a different way, and I think both of us working together, we really saw how working collaboratively and in an interdisciplinary manner can really elevate projects like these and bring forward the voices of different community members. We finally had this opportunity to make something real out of this and not just talk about it, which was really exciting for the both of us. So through my class at NASCAD, I had the opportunity to use the Treaty Space Gallery, and we kind of worked on identifying problems within the institution, identified that Treaty Space Gallery as a problem because it's often sitting empty and unused. So we looked at that and we kind of said, hey, let's fill that with something beautiful and let's use the space how it was intended. We're revitalizing the space, which also goes in hand with revitalizing the language and just having that authentic representation. My creative process doing this whole collaboration was very interesting because Emma doesn't live here and we had to figure out how to collaborate digitally. And I think it really helped that we have an existing relationship and an existing friendship to be able to really work through ideas. So a lot of phone calls, a lot of FaceTime. And then she was able to visit a couple times to get into the space itself and physically map out where we wanted stuff, When she finished writing her story, we realized we can't really put a 20-page story on a gallery wall. So the hard part was actually picking which excerpts that we wanted to showcase on the walls. We wanted to focus on the challenging emotions of learning the language as well as the nourishing emotions. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it's also not all difficult either. And we wanted to focus on that joy that comes with learning your language and learning your culture and being able to express yourself in a public space and have that authentic representation. We chose the hieroglyph continuing medicine. Creating this project for both Emma and I was good medicine, as we'll say. It helped us work through these challenging emotions that she was facing in her class and learning her language. It helped me work through challenges I was facing through my class at school and doing this project. It's also medicine to learn your culture and to reconnect and do that work to relearn and revitalize. In my own personal practice, I found going through school in a design school, I sort of lost this self-expression of creativity when you're being forced to create stuff. Not forced, but required to create stuff for a class. But something that I always kept with me was my beadwork that I did for fun and to express myself. And that was also a really important thing that I did that helped me on my journey of relearning my Métis culture. And it really grounded me, and I always was brought back when I was having a bad day. I would pull out my beadwork and create something out of my mind and express myself through that. Growing up, I was always outside. My sisters and I were always playing outside. So all my fondest childhood memories, they take place in our backyard or our forest that was in the backyard that we were lucky to have. And now as an adult, I find myself wanting to go back to the forest, and even recently learning more about traditional plants and harvesting food from the forest. So just recently in spring, I harvested a bunch of fiddleheads, learning how to identify different trees and cedar and making tea out of it. Emma and I were both really pleasantly surprised during the opening. We had a few people come up to us that were emotional after reading her story, and I think for her as an author, that's something really powerful to see your words move somebody like that. And also people saying, "Oh, I want to buy your paintings," to me. I'm like, I'm not ready to let them go yet, but I'll keep you in mind. We also deliberately put the Mi'kmaq version of the excerpt before the English one because we wanted to prioritize that and also challenge that sort of colonial narrative of reading from left to right. So you can actually experience this by reading right to left, or you can start in the middle and move to the first one, then the third one. And that's because the story itself is nonlinear. It's dealing with memory. So your memories don't happen all in sequential order. You're going to remember something from yesterday, and then you're going to remember something from when you're a little girl or a little child. So that's how Emma wrote the story, and that's also how we displayed it. And that also shows how learning your language is nonlinear. Having a project like this that centers the Mi'kmaq language and prioritizes it over English in a space like the educational institution of NASCAD is really important, not only for Indigenous students that come into the space and go to the school and maybe feel really out of place. Maybe it's their first time away from home and they feel like they don't belong, which is a really common experience. And having that in the space, just hearing the language, just seeing the language on the wall, maybe tasting the cedar tea, that's something that can be really comforting.
Edelian kielman, kaskusiak maskui ukluswakan mua. Meesi miguideedaman, kluswakan, tan inu demabin, wachquiguayanek ni buktuk. Bokji Wigaman dan deze goche, gies mi gwydedum, ula ni bokdok eimanek, alwijid goyachek, nidabach wises. San jij na nujij, gesat jixidik, des agunudum, dan des mal milidayek, wabus, wokwis, diam, ak jave gau gachahuj. Des weskunk ak eludach diam, mede wiluwad ni bokdok. San jij baksi belmid ak delwed, nugumi, amasin. I gayanek ni bokt, dan edel bantachiach, geidu ab untaw dijum bokjig gakdachiach. Naguse bokjig wakwasiet, ni bokt janasik, ak eskamaluwen ab mitugwen.
This project has really helped me to continue to learn how to work with communities other than my own. And it's also really important for these stories, Indigenous stories, to be told by an Indigenous person through an Indigenous lens, depending on which community the story is about.